Rayzr. Hey, welcome back to Sketchin with Rayzr, and today I'm drawing some fan art for Nine Souls. Nine Souls is a game about a cat-like dude named Yi who's seeking vengeance on the 9 souls that make up the council of his people. The name of his people is called Solarians, and the short-form version of Solarians is called Souls. S-O-L-S. I find it interesting because 9 souls is more than likely a play on the whole cats have 9 lives. Clever girl. I think he also wanted to protect humans, as well as his own people. Well, at least what's left of his own people. The reason why I say that is because his people are in danger of extinction due to a disease that's killing everybody off. Yi decided to do more research on the situation, and then he found out the truth, which was his master was the reason why the disease even started in the first place. So when he went to confront his master about it, she's the one to tell him that he was the last one of the council to find out the truth, which made him even angrier. His master initially didn't have any evil intentions. She just wanted to find a way to achieve immortality. Unfortunately, through her experiments, she ended up creating some sort of virus that would either turn their own people into mutants or just straight up kill them off. In fact, during one of her experiments, she ended up creating domestic cats from her own people, which is kind of silly. Despite this, the council were coming up with several ways to try and mitigate the virus or completely bypass it through other means. Like in one instance, there is, in order to protect the people, they would remove the brains of their people and put them in a they put them in a sort of VR reality, so they can live out their greatest fantasies forever. Even if their body, quote unquote, dies, their brain is still maintained in this like container to forever live on. In fact, there's actually a section in the game where you go into this virtual reality and things go from somewhat pleasant to very violent and very warped and creepy. Rewinding a bit, Yi confronted his master and demanded she tell the rest of the people outside from their council about the truth. Of course, she wasn't going to do that, so they have a fight. She beats the crap out of him, and then kicks him off a cliff. He practically dies until he becomes one with these weird black hexagonal vine-like structures that pulls him in and essentially puts him in this eternal coma of healing. I don't remember, but what I do remember is that he has this little green ring around his chest, and it's essentially the catalyst for how he's able to connect with these vines and not only heal, but essentially resurrect himself. This actually plays a part within the game's mechanics itself. Every time you quote unquote die, you get revived by these said vines, so you can try again. But one of the things that confuses me in regards to this is that in the beginning of the game, after you get knocked off of the cliff, as I said earlier, you get taken in by these vines to heal. Now, according to the game, or at least the game's mechanics, when you quote-unquote die, you get brought back pretty quickly. But in the instance that he fell off the cliff, he doesn't get brought back until like 500 years later. I'm like, what in the world happened there? I'm not sure what exactly happened, but he gets revived after 500 years, and then a human that was living in the area finds him. Well, I guess he actually wakes him up after playing a flute. And, he decides to live with this human for 2 years. And then after those 2 years of preparation to get revenge, that's when the events of the game starts. His master, who I believe is named Igong, that's E-I-G-O-N-G, she is the final boss of the game. Well, a lot of people have been saying that she's the hardest boss. But for me, the hardest boss of the game is Lady Ethereal. And it's mostly because the game relies heavily on parrying instead of dodging enemy attacks. In order to parry, you have to make sure to press your parry button at the right time. Otherwise, you get punished. The issue with Lady Ethereal is that she summons a bunch of clones, as well as a bunch of random nonsense attacks that will throw off your timing repeatedly. Master Igong also has a bunch of attacks that can be difficult, but for some reason, I was able to adapt to it very quickly in comparison to Lady Ethereal. I'm not saying that I didn't lose to her a bunch of times, because I definitely did, but I definitely beat her way faster than I did with Lady Ethereal. In fact, I believe I beat the third phase of her boss fight in one shot. Gamer. Anyways, Lady Aigon was the final boss of the game, and she's the one that I decided to use for this art piece. I'm trying to come up with a dynamic pose. One of the angles that I'm having the most trouble with is a sort of bottom up angle. I believe it's a worm's eye view. I believe that's the name of the camera angle. However, I'm also giving it a bit of a multi-point perspective angle. It's a less extreme version of the fisheye lens perspective. Because of this, Yi has a portion of his body that is closest to the quote-unquote camera, so of course anything closer will appear larger. And the portions of Yi's body that are further away from the camera will appear smaller. The pose is Yi preparing a talisman to slap onto his master, of which he will then charge up and then explode to cause a lot of damage. The pose for Master Aigon is her dashing downwards from the air to not only slash at him, but to also dunk this giant orb of ki onto Yi. Bars. The only real issues that I had in regards to these poses was, of course, getting the right proportions down for the perspective and making sure that it actually looks correct. As always, you can let me know whether or not it actually looks correct. That way I can improve my next art piece. But that's all I got for you guys today. I hope you guys have a good one, and make sure to keep your mind, body, and soul razor sharp.
Rayzr.